There's no point in one processor having what they think is an excellent traceability system if all the information going into it is coming from SMEs that don't have as sophisticated a system. Keep it simple and do it well. I'm being told I have to move on, so I'll skip some of these. The other thing, I won't bore you with the technicalities. When you're considering traceability information, there's a bit more to it than you might think. So you have to consider the various types of data that you're recording. Master data, you're exchanging product data. Master data, generally you exchange with your customers or your suppliers once. Product information. Transactional data, traceability to do with loads, to do with logistics, to do with shipping product. And batch or lot, also known as instance level data. And that's where traceability information is specific to a lot. Now that particular batch or lot might ship across many transactions, but the traceability information remains constant. There's also the usual conflict between public and private data. That will vary depending on your relationship with your suppliers and your customers. You can demand more data, or your customers can demand more or less data. I'll move on quickly or I'll be in trouble. So technologies for sharing data. The humble barcode is a technology. It's with us 40 years. It's very easy to presume that it's of no value. The humble barcode is the starting point for sharing information. The barcode contains information. It came up very quick. It contains information which you can then read and bring into your own internal systems. There's no infrastructure, no major technology. It's a very simple process. The vast majority of businesses are using barcodes, perhaps not correctly and certainly not as widely as they could. They're not taking full advantage of them. Other technologies I'll have to just touch on. EDI. So the ability to exchange data. Most companies will be exchanging invoice and sales order data. There is nothing to stop you using the same technology to exchange traceability data. Okay? The standards are there to embed your traceability information in those same transactions. That's a peer-to-peer exercise. So if you've 20 customers, you've got 20 different relationships, electronic relationships to maintain. I'm trying to see what's coming up on the screen. I don't think it's quite reflected here. GDS is to do with sharing product master data. The traditional model is you send out a product listing for every customer you have, for example, before you ship the physical product. This is animated and I can't see the animation, sorry about this. So you can see the product data is sent out to your customers, the physical product follows. Quite often your customer is passing the product data on to their customers and you get conflicting versions or you get incorrect versions or you don't get any version at all. So the GDS model for sharing data is where you publish your product data. As a manufacturer, you'll publish your product data to a single repository, and anybody who wants access to that product data will retrieve it online. There's only one version of the data and the manufacturer controls that version. If there's a subsequent update, so if things change about that product, allergens or ingredients change, everybody who has subscribed to the original copy automatically gets an update. Anybody who got the original will also get any updates. Being patronizing, this is the traditional supply chain. We've always seen one up, one forward, one back, and the data moves from one party to the next. Okay, traditional supply chain, the data is not always the original data that started out. And how that data is shared, that's the one up, one down. I'm only concerned with my supplier, I'm only concerned with my customer. A little bit more sophisticated, it has been tried in the pharmaceutical industry, but generally doesn't work. And that is where whatever information I receive, I pass that plus my data on to my customer, who in turn adds their data and passes the entire package onto their customer. All of that information can be passed on to the retailer, for example. So they now have all of the traceability data about all of the ingredients for a particular product or batch. And also, some of that information can be passed back to any of the other parties in the supply chain. Now, it's permission-based. It doesn't mean things like prices, quantities, or volumes are necessarily shared, because that's commercially sensitive information. But it is possible to share that information with everybody in the supply chain. That would help on forecasting, for example, demand forecasting, which is another major issue in the supply chain. So very quickly, I'm getting daggers here. Very quickly, EPCIS, how does it look? So technically, and this is a real example, you would scan a barcode. That barcode, would have an identifier. We know it as a GTIN in GS1 circles. It's just a unique identifier and a batch number or a serial number. We then trawl the internet effectively, the same way as Google does, looking for the traceability information for that product. That returns all of the detail. You can select what information you want. There's a lot of information on the product, but you might be only interested in certain transactions. And that can be presented to the consumer. So in this example for fish, it's showing me where the fish was caught. It's showing me what factory processed it. It can even show me on Google Maps the route it took to get to the store. Okay, and there's some static data there as well about what the product is, how to process it. And generally you've got value added after that. You can add on recipes and so on. Nearly there. So the burning question, which traceability technology should I choose? The first question that's asked after each one of these presentations. Unfortunately, each of the technologies serves a different purpose. So you can't necessarily say, well, I'll do GDS, because GDS is only part of the picture. I'll use barcodes. Yes, I know you will, because generally in food supply chain, you don't have much choice. It's the technology of choice for the vast, vast majority of retailers worldwide. There's over 5 billion barcodes scanned every day. The simple answer is you'll have to consider using all of the above. All of those technologies. All of those technologies might be needed in your business. It'll depend on your customers and your suppliers. At the very least, you need to be aware of those technologies, particularly GDS and EPCIS, because we're now looking at traceability networks of the future. Absolutely, undoubtedly, you are going to come across a requirement from your customers for EPCIS and GDS. There are now major retailers on the continent who simply will not take product from you unless you can supply data in those technologies. Okay, there are Metro, for example, Lidl on the continent now require traceability information using these technologies. It's only a matter of time, and I'm not talking years, I'm talking months before some of you will be asked for that information for your food business. So, GS1 and anti-counterfeiting, last 2 slides. I won't labour the point on anti-counterfeiting. Obviously, traceability links closely to anti-counterfeiting. And I said I'd pick 2 technologies. How we're just simple approaches to combating counterfeiting of product. Low value product. It's quite easy to anti-counterfeit, bring in anti-counterfeit measures using e-pedigree and infrastructure where you've got online databases, you can reference serial numbers. Not so easy with food, not cost effective. So for example, for some foodstuffs, it might take putting on a holographic barcode. They can't be replicated. They can be scanned using normal hardware. Even at the point of sale, using your camera, you can still scan them, but you can't replicate them. So the current barcode, you can simply photocopy. One more slide. So you can see the holograms there, so they're very powerful and the information can be put in there. In conjunction with the hologram, and possibly instead of the hologram, we also have now digital signatures within barcodes. So that means that if company X creates a barcode, if they generate a barcode, I can very easily, with very little technology, verify, yes, it was company X. We're using digital signature encryption technologies so that if company X has a product or a pallet or a shipment document and they put on a barcode that has this digital signature, I can very easily verify it is from company X and that the data in the barcode has not been tampered with. So if I want to substitute product from company X, I have to be able to reconstruct the digital signature. If I want to change batch numbers or serial numbers, I have to reconstruct the digital signature. Effectively, companies have control now over what barcodes are on their pallets, for example, or on individual items. So when it arrives at a warehouse, they can immediately say, hold on, that is not from company X. There's a pilot underway, well, it's not quite underway, it's just about starting now on this technology with one of the retailers here in Ireland. So to be interested, if any of you in the food industry are interested, just come up and give me a shout, because we're looking for 1 or 2 small food companies to get involved in it. The technology is cheap, it won't cost you anything, but it's something you might be interested in having a look at. And to the relief, that concludes my talk. Thank you very much.